Winnipeg Blue Bombers are 4-2 on the season. And the question now, what is the state of this franchise? Two very concerning losses, a blowout at home to the BC Lions a few weeks ago, and then a late game dismantling at the hands of the Ottawa Red Blacks by a rookie quarterback who pretty much put that young team on his back, Dustin Crum, and rode it to victory. They called it the Crumback. Can Winnipeg mount a comeback and turn their season around? Is this a bump in the road, a bad day at the office, if you will? Is this maybe Winnipeg showing some flaws? Or is it something deeper and more concerning for the state of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers franchise? Welcome inside Game Day Winnipeg on Bonfire Sports. Great to have you along with us. Chris Walby joins us, as he always does. The man, the myth, the legend, the Hall of Famer. Bluto, what did you see in Ottawa as we now take that game with the context it brings the Winnipeg Blue Bombers season and look towards the winless Edmonton Elks coming to IG Field Thursday night?
Well, I just think that the way the Ottawa came back was it was one of those things where I couldn't believe it. I actually jumped up out of my chair when I was watching the game, and I was excited. I mean, not the fact that Ottawa did it, but the way they did it. I mean, and I think that the Barflies here on the comment was a great thing. I watched the game again. It was on about 2 a.m, and I watched it. The lack of tackling was horrible. Even on the last run, when he ran in, when Crum ran in for that 29-yard touchdown, there were two guys that could have hit him, and they just flashed by him. You got to try and get this guy down. I mean, it was, to me, there was the ultimate definition of quit. They just didn't have it, and I don't know why, because they saw a week earlier he took a run, could have won the game for Ottawa. Hamilton tackled him at the 3-yard line. Mm-hmm. Hamilton wins. Bombers could have done that and held him to maybe a field goal, but you know what? He just ran through us, made a nice move on whatchamacallit, on Big Hill. Biggie kind of overran the play a little bit.
Touchdown, yeah.
And then Jesse Briggs had a chance to get him and just kind of floated by. I was really disappointed with the tackling effort. I mean, I thought this guy, now, if I'm looking at Taylor Cornelius, who has only run 20 times this year, and he's been brain dead for a lot of his plays, if he sees something in that thing, they're going to look at it and say, you know what, maybe you got to start utilizing your legs and start running the football a little bit more and keep that defense honest. But did you see the difference in the pass protection? Ottawa's offensive line from the first half to the second half was night and day. They actually went with a double tight a lot of times, take away some of that pressure from the outside, because Willie was he swam that one guard so fast that it was mind-blowing when he got a sack. I just thought they played much better in the second half. I give them credit. I think Bobby Dice had those guys believing, and I think they actually started believing in themselves when they started, the big play, obviously, the fumble of Brady, getting the ball punched out. Then the interception, obviously, by Dandridge, return for a touchdown. And you could see Mr. Momentum going over from one bench to the other bench. To watch the coaches high-fiving each other, to watch Kahari Jones and Bobby Dice hugging each other on the sideline, as they're moving in to tie the game. It was a wonderful thing to see. It was beautiful football to me. I give Ottawa full credit. The Bombers had, they were up 25-9 or something like that with 3 minutes left. How do you lose a game like that? That's utter and complete collapse.
So where is the level of concern right now? Important to remember some changes that the Winnipeg Blue Bombers have made from last week's loss in Ottawa to coming back home. This is their final game. It is a short week, but a final game before their first of 3 byes this season. Craig Smith, great to see you, Craig, watching live on Facebook. Craig says, watch the film, learn from it, on to the next game. Great to see everybody in the live chat, by the way. Thanks for joining us here on Bonfire. To Craig's point, the Blue Bombers, to Craig's point and to your point, Chris, about the tackling, the Blue Bombers learned from the tape and they're making changes. It's important to know that Malik Clements, who is widely regarded as an emerging impact player in this league, now in his second year in Winnipeg and third year in the CFL, went down to injury during that game against Ottawa, and Jesse Briggs was the man to get the tap on the shoulder and go in there and try to fill in. Was it his most shining moment? of course it was not. When Dustin Crum ran in for the touchdown late, he just, was not in the right position and was not keeping his eyes on one of the most dangerous things the Ottawa Redblacks had shown in that game, and that's the quarterback taking off and running. They're also making a change this week, Winnipeg, in putting Alden Darby as a backup, and Canadian Reda Cramdy, who has cut his teeth as a special teamer for the last number of years here in Winnipeg, he's going to start at the dime back spot. And to me, I think both of these moves are to get players in there that are strong tacklers, that are mentally sharp, and that aren't going to make the mistakes that cost Winnipeg so dearly last week.
Yeah, I agree with you, DB, and all those points. I mean, obviously, I was a little surprised by Alden Darby. I knew they threw the ball on him a couple times, but I mean, to me, it was just like it was like the Red Sea just opening up, and he took off. I mean, he ran he got 90 something yards or 100 yards rushing. In 2 games, he's almost a leading rusher. Well, he's a leading rusher for Ottawa, but he's got like 200 yards plus in 2 games. I just think what he does is incredible. But you got to get more pressure up top. Thomas and Ricky Walker, the 2 tackles, cannot. They've got to get some penetration. You really need to get some penetration up front, boys. You're getting a lot of pressure on the outside in Jefferson and Jeffcoat, but you must get some push from the middle. Now, they're only going 5 D linemen, which is very strange. 6. Usually they go 7. They like to rotate these guys. Yeah. So obviously, you're probably going to see a little bit more Anthony Bennett and Cam Lawson. But they need to get push. You cannot let these guys sit back, especially this Cornelius kid. Listen, they keep going back to him. I think they surprised a lot of the Edmonton media, too, when they saw that he was taking first-team reps again. Obviously, Chris Jones is left with, he can't go with his backup. He actually had an article on Trade Ford. He said he's just not playing well enough right now. He's got to earn a chance to start. And the backup, I'm not sure. What's his Doogie? What's his name? Dodge?
Daggy.
Daggy? Okay, well, Doggy, whatever. He's, he came in. I don't think he did much either. So they're going to ride Cornelius as far as they can. I mean, I can't believe he's got a $100,000 guaranteed contract next year too, or something like in his contract. It's crazy, man. Why do you put that kind of money on a guy like that? But having said that,
for you.
Listen, the Edmonton has got a heck of a running back in Kevin Brown. He's a good running back. I watched it. He played well. Stephen Dunbar, he can catch the football. You got Dylan Mitchell, who's going to have a breakout game sometime. Has no touchdowns. This guy was a leading receiver with them last year. They got a lot of rookies.
Don't forget starting Kieran Moore.
Yeah, I mean it's just you've got Maurice French, you've got Vincent Forbes. He's a second-year guy. They got Kyron Moore. I've been a big fan of Kyron even when he was with Saskatchewan. Mm-hmm. But they have got to run the ball, and they've got to get the ball out quick. Cornelius made that dumbass play where he rolled out, going to get sacked, and he pushes the ball up in his hand. It leads to an interception by the opposite team. It just demoralized me. If I was on the sideline, I know as much as you're a team, you want to give the guy a smack in the helmet and go, "Hey, buddy, take the sack, throw the ball away." What are you doing? Putting it up in the air in bounds. Get it out. Take a throw the ball out. Take any kind of penalty. But don't do that. Don't force something like that. He's made these mistakes. I mean,
Chris Walby doesn't pull punches. That play by Taylor Cornelius was the blunder of the week, no doubt about it. Sure. It's surprising to me, Chris. You mentioned Jared Daggy. I think he's shown enough to warrant more playing time. Yeah. But the question is, when you're a winless football team and everything is going wrong, how much needs to be balanced there for the Edmonton Elks in sticking with their quote unquote number one guy and not, I think my take is I think the Edmonton Elks made their mistake when they went from Cornelius, gave Daggy a start, then back to Cornelius. And now you've got a complete quarterback room in flux where these guys, how do you play consistent, confident football when your coach can make, the changes so quickly, like the drop of a hat, like Chris Jones?
Yeah, but I think the fact is he's trying to get some solidarity. He's trying to get some chemistry with Taylor. By naming him as a starter, he's trying to avoid that, quarterback room kerfuffle. Who's playing? Is it Diggity Doggy playing? Is it Cornelius? Is it Trey Ford? I think the fact that they're going with Cornelius is a good thing. He had his best game of his career against the Bombers last year. He completed 25 passes. He's 0-4 versus the Bombers. I looked at some of his stats today, and I was writing them down. He's had 58 offensive drives, and he's led them to 4 touchdowns. It's not good. Mm-hmm. So I mean, but I think if he makes, then you watch the, you'll go during the week and you listen to their broadcast, and he's shooting the lights out of practice. All the good decisions, getting rid of the football, hitting the receivers on the run, and he gets these brain farts when he comes into the game. I mean, the lights hit, come on in. It's almost like a guy is writing his SAT and he thinks he has to run his SAT on Saturday. It's not the smartest thing. Well, I'm talking about, brother.
Oh, yes. I never took the SATs, but, no doubt. Chris, Kenny Lawler, I think, is maybe the most forefront storyline of this game. Maybe the Winnipeg Blue Bombers themselves out of the equation. But when you look at the Winnipeg Blue Bombers depth chart on offense, there's Edmonton's, but let's bring up Winnipeg's. The changes that they will make really consist of the change for Kenny Lawler to reemerge into the lineup. So Carlton goes back on the 1-game injured list, and in comes Kenny Lawler, and back to his familiar spot at the boundary wide receiver spot right here. So Rasheed Bailey moves to slot back, and that bumps Dalton Schoen over to field side slot back. Now, here's the thing. These depth charts are going to show you one of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers receiver looks. They are going to move guys everywhere. We've seen Drew Wolodarski even move from that Z receiver spot back in. But what I noticed from this is that 2 of the best blocking receivers in the CFL, Nick Dembski and Rasheed Bailey, those are the inside slots. This run game, controlling the clock, keeping Edmonton's opportunities to be on offense, and just to limit turnovers for Winnipeg, I think is going to be of huge importance in a game where the crowd is going to be on the Blue Bombers side. And if they can control the football, that's just another thing that's going to be on their side, and not allow a team to remain within striking distance like Ottawa did, and Winnipeg lost.
Yeah, well, they weren't even in striking distance. They shouldn't have been even in a game.
It was a 2-score game at halftime.
Yeah, I know, but they just looked horrible. You looked at, they had 20 yards offense, and it was like the tale of two. It's Charles Dickens, A Tale of Two Cities. Two halves. You look at that, 20 yards offense in the first half, and they had 300 plus in the second half. I don't know who the offense coordinator, Harry Jones, what he did with these guys to sit them down and say, okay, this is what we're going to start doing. Because they came out, and I could see Crum throwing the football, and he was hitting his receivers. Now, listen, I was not a guy that was really bone high on this Nate Bahar, but I got to tell you, this kid made some catches. That over-the-shoulder catch was just a thing of beauty, keeping his feet in bounds, especially on that last drive to tie. He threw 2 beautiful balls, right? So, I mean, Nate Bahar gets a 2-point conversion, and then it's anybody's game. And I don't care if you're a Bomber fan, if you're a Montreal Alouette fan, you're jumping off your chair. You're excited for Ottawa because this is a team that I think Bobby Dice can really start to build. And when you get confidence like that, and they have a guy now, Crum's the guy now, right? I mean, he went to from nobody know him to a national hero. They got shirts about him now. It's crazy. I mean,
sure.
But that's the way it has to be. We're not awarding him to Shanley or the most outstanding player, but I'll say this. He basically carried that team. Can Cornelius do it for Edmonton? Maybe. But he has to do something. I mean, there's something in him that allowed that team, that Edmonton, he's the head coach and GM, and Chris Jones paid him this kind of money. There's something that they saw, they feel that he can develop into. Has he happened yet? No. He's got 3 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. They just got to get it going again. I mean, they've made another change in their offensive line with Brett Boyko coming in at right tackle now. Foucault, I think, or Foucault, whatever, David, the 6'8" guy at left guard was playing right tackle, and he was getting smoked.
Oh, and taking penalties. Serious. Like there was a Taylor Cornelius passing touchdown a couple weeks ago. That
the guy's a big horse. He's got terrible feet. Yeah. I mean, I was watching guys run around him. I mean, seriously. If you're a D lineman, you're lighting a cigarette, then you're rushing the quarterback. I mean, come on, buddy. So I think he's better at the inside position because he's a big horse, 6'8", 3+. So, I mean, I think that's his natural position. I don't think he's good at tackle. Brett Boyko was a storied guy out of Saskatchewan. He went to the NFL. They were blowing him up. and it never turned out. And he was in BC, and he blew out BC. I mean, wasn't very good in BC. So yeah, it's almost like a resurgence for Brett Boyko. We'll see what he can do. I'm not trying to be hard on these guys, but my God, they've got to play better up front if they have any hope, because I think the Bombers' defense, aside from really allowing the quarterbacks to run, they've got to play better. I want to see what this Les Morrow guy is going to do for us. It's a big start for the from the import. I think, is he Japanese? From
He's a
Japan? I
global,
think
yeah.
he's from
Played in
Japan.
the NCAA, but he's Japanese.
I mean, they like him. He's very smart. He's a good hitter. And you hit it on the head when you said that earlier, DB. O'Shea, when I watched this press conference, said, we want guys that can tackle. We need sure-handed tackling. We cannot be doing the whiffs anymore. You can't just, so, yeah, go ahead.
The changes the Blue Bombers made on defense are, as I mentioned off the top of the show, and good to see everybody from Winnipeg Sports Talk that joined us over here on Game Day Winnipeg and the Blue Bombers Elks pregame show, is that Redick Ramsey at the dime and Les Maruo at weak side linebacker. You mentioned Maruo and the sure tackling that he is. Great special teams player, so he can tackle and tackle at high speed. Redick Ramsey, also a special teamer and Canadian, starting at the dime over Alden Darby. Maybe not as good in pass coverage as the more athletic Alden Darby. But here's the thing, Chris. I put Redick Ramsey's image on the YouTube thumbnail this week for a reason. Redick Ramsey has an edge to him. He plays with a real physical edge. And I think that's something Winnipeg's defense has been missing a little bit. I'm not saying they've been playing soft, but to add a guy that plays hard-nosed football, that will go smack somebody in the mouth, I think will be so important. I know it's the dime back spot. It's a linebacker, or it's not really a linebacker spot. It's more of a DB spot. But if Edmonton is indeed going to use their running back, Kevin Brown, a lot, use some, counter plays, misdirection, bubble screens, zone screens, that sort of thing, that dime backer spot is going to be in charge of and responsible for covering Kevin Brown in the short pass game and in the, kind of outside run game. So I think having Redick Ramsey there is a nice move for Winnipeg. But are the Winnipeg Blue Bombers missing a killer instinct with the way that they let that game slip between their fingers?
I don't know about a killer instinct anymore, because I don't want to talk about that part. But I just want to hit another point about Redick Ramsey. He got to play. He started and played a game quite a bit against Saskatchewan. And he has to. One thing they don't have is they don't have the experience. Yeah, you can be a great hitter, but they don't have the experience. If Edmonton starts playing games with the receivers, running a lot of mismatch, clearing out a zone, putting somebody underneath. I watched what Saskatchewan did to him, and you saw McInnes. He came in and went back outside, and Ramsey didn't even see him till the last second, got beat badly for a touchdown. That's the game within the game. You know what I mean? I mean, now you got guys like Les Morrow. Hey, I don't give it. A guy's a great tackler, but you still got to know your reads. Adam Bighill is going to have to be the huge general out there and make sure these guys know their assignments, know who they got. Because listen, I will say this: if Cornelius gets an edge and he starts throwing the football well, they've got receivers. I mean, Mitchell and Dunbar, these guys are good. I mean, Kyron Moore, we watched him in Saskatchewan. These guys can go flat out play. If they get protection, and maybe they're going to do a little double tights. You never know. They got an extra lineman in there and Govek, but I just want to bring out the point that, yeah, it's great to have tacklers, and I'm glad they're making changes for change. But as long as they're assignment smart, knowing who they got, don't bite, don't look in the backfield. Because what they're going to do is they're going to flood one side, bring a guy underneath, floods one side, hit a guy in, hope you bite on it, get deep ball, and like you said on Kevin Brown, which is an excellent point by you, because, yes, if Kevin Brown fakes out, and they might do an RPO run pass option, he goes out to the flat, and then he hits it up. Those one of those patterns. One of those receivers or one of those DBs, either Morrow or Ramsey. Now, would I go against Morrow? Absolutely. I don't think Morrow's as fast as Ramsey. So, I mean, if I was looking at film, I might say, okay, let's get a matchup at Morrow. I don't know. I've never seen him flat out run. I don't know what his 40 is. I don't think it's a match for a Brown. I think a Brown's a lot faster. But, again, it's a game of matchups. That's why it's going to be fun to watch. I mean, I think there's some heat on Richie Hall. Not any way about saying the guys that we have 2 games now. that I don't think that they were playing very smart. But offensively, which we'll talk about later, we weren't very good offensively either, especially in that second half. We were pretty ugly.
Another point on the Blue Bombers defense is Brandon Alexander at safety. And John, who's watching live on YouTube. What's going on, John? Great to see you alongside everybody else here on the Bonfire. Welcome in. Is Alexander hurt? Asks John. Because he went from "Here Comes the Boom" to "Where Did He Go?" Joining the live chat, and great to see. Fire away, everybody. Let's get the conversation going. I don't know if you've noticed it. I've noticed it a little bit, Chris. Brandon Alexander, since the really, really hellacious knee injury 2 years ago that, kept him out of half of last season as well, he just does not seem to be that same physical presence like he has been in years past. And I wonder if the knee injury is maybe a reason why he's not able to play with such reckless abandon as he has in years past.
That's a great point. Sometimes players play to protect themselves a little bit, but usually when you're in a game, you're not worried about that. You're just basically trying to go out there and react. I don't think he's had the opportunity to do any big smackdowns, as they say in wrestling, but I do expect him to hit somebody hard that's coming across the middle, much like AKA Benny Thompson, who played years ago with us. He was a hitman, and I think that he has that reputation. But I agree with you, D. I mean, the fact is he hasn't been playing Brandon Alexander hit in the mouth football. So that's something I'm still waiting to see. I want to see the resurgence of Mr. Alexander back there at that safety position.
Some people asking about Teadric Hansen. Well, this is the really unfortunate news. So CFL teams manage the salary cap, they manage their practice roster and their active roster, and then they manage their injured lists. And for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, I'm just going to pull it up here on the screen. The Blue Bombers injured list is as such. Winston Rose, he comes off the 6-game injured list where he started the season. We're in week 7, by the way, so 6 weeks have gone by. So Winston Rose and Kyrie Wilson each go to the 1-game injured list. So that's good news because they're closer to a return than farther away. Malik Clements, bad news, moves to the 6-game injured list. Shane Gauthier, well, he's still on the 6. He did not start the season there, so he's still got a couple weeks to go. Janarian Grant, same situation. Celestin Haba, that's a tough hit for a young player. He is on the 6-game injured list now. Got injured this past week. Desmond Lawrence, he was placed on the 6 a couple weeks ago. Mike Miller, he's about midway through his 6-game stint. But Teadric Hansen on the 6-game. He started the season on the 6-game. And this is where the news is not so great, Chris, because if a player is into week 7 on the 6-game injured list and they started the season on the 6, that means this is his second stint, his second time on the 6-game injured list. So he has another 6 weeks ahead of him. Where this comes into play with the salary cap is if a player's on the 6-game, their salary does not count against the salary cap. If you're on the 1-game, yeah, it does. So that's why you put a player on the 6. The issue with the second stint on the 6-game is that is where there is financial penalty to taking a player off early. You can only do it twice if they're on their second stint. So for Teadric Hansen, we're at a point right now where we know he makes more money than the rookie salary he made in the first couple years in the CFL. He's right around that $120,000 mark. This tells us that he is not close to a return because he's probably going to be another 6 games on injured list. So with Haba going on the 6, with Hansen needing another 6, and where Winnipeg's D line is kind of getting a little bit thin, especially at the edge where Haba and Hansen play, should Winnipeg be calling up some players? Maybe Sean Lemon. I don't know.
That's a good point. They were talking about that the other day, that how is Sean Lemon not even in the league right now? I mean, they showed videos. He's posting videos on YouTube and Facebook about himself.
Oh, yeah.
All these drills. He looks great. Is it a salary thing? I don't know, but I'm sure some teams could use him. I'm surprised. Basically, a guy that good, who still has that much wear on the tires, is not picked up by somebody. I mean, if somebody could use this guy, and it just seems like they're just holding him back. And for whatever reason, I mean, I don't know what he's like in the locker room. I don't know if it's a salary thing, but yeah, he's
Or
one of
can
those
he
guys that
play enough downs to be helpful? Like, it's great if you've got explosion and burst and good sack numbers, but can you play 40 snaps? Can you play a long series without needing to be subbed off?
I think he could. I'll be honest with you. I watched him play last year when he was the Western Division All Star and basically runner up for defense, or was one of the categories for Defensive Player of the Year. I thought, you know what, this guy should be playing. He went to BC. It didn't fit in. I think BC, you understand what they were doing. They were going with the youth movement. Matt Schubetz and those guys are playing super football out there on their D line. So I guess they can afford to go younger and cheaper. Or maybe it's one of those cases where they had so much money invested in the D line, they decided to cut some of it, just pare down what they have to pay. So that's one of the points. But yeah, it's interesting when you say that too. And I saw one of the comments here, and it's interesting, like I brought up too, we've only got 5 D line, or 6. I guess we're dressing 6 here.
Yeah.
Anthony Bennett has not got a lot of playing time. I expect him to get more now. Cam Lawson, he's doing pretty good when he gets in there.
Lawson's
But they're going to have to rotate. Yeah. They're going to have to rotate. Listen, but you know what? They blitz the hell out of it. Adam Bighill is notorious. If you watch the sack he got last week on Crum, he comes up late to the line of scrimmage. The 2 tackles take their guys. The center goes with a double team on the right-hand guy on the tackle, and he just runs straight up the middle and makes a tackle and makes a sack. Great play. That's the thing that Adam gives you. He's smart. He comes from the outside. He comes from the inside. But you remember that. If you're bringing a middle linebacker, you got to make sure those receivers are smart enough to see that. Mm-hmm. Because if he's coming up, somebody's going to be open. There's going to be an opening in the middle, right? It's like when a safety comes, it's cover 0. There's nobody deep. That's where experience takes place. That's where if quarterback sees that, you get a lot of deep throws and deep plays. So I'll be looking for the check match. I'm going to look for it. It's going to be interesting.
So one of the players coming off the 6-game injured list is Jamal Parker, wearing number 7. That was not the number he wore last year when he started 9 games in the Blue Bombers secondary in 2022. He's a backup on defense this week in his first action of 2023. But there he is. He's going to be the punt returner. Now, Greg McCrae is the kick returner. We'll see if they rotate these guys or what happens. But Greg McCrae bumbled a couple of balls in the return game last week, but nice to see Jamal Parker back. Winston Rose, as we mentioned, probably close to a return as well. So the Blue Bombers defensive secondary getting healthy, while, you mentioned the linebackers and the D-line nicked up, getting a little bit thin right now. Brian Cole is somebody I think would probably step in if they needed another starter, right, at middle or weak side linebacker. An American. He has just been laying the boom on special teams this season. Briggs, Tanner Cadwallader, I think those are guys that are maybe a little bit farther down right now, especially with the way things went in Ottawa last week. But all things considered, it's very good news that Kyrie Wilson, coming back from a torn Achilles tendon last season, on the 1-game injured list after a full stint on the 6. Chris, do need to mention, before we forget, but how could we forget? Shannon's Irish Pub is the spot to be. 175 Carlton Street, underneath the streets of downtown Winnipeg. If you've never been, you got to go check them out. They're now open on Fridays for lunch. So if you feel like kicking off work early this week, after maybe not getting much sleep after the Blue Bombers game at IG Field on Thursday, they're open for lunch. You can get your weekend started early. 21 beers on tap, ice cold. They got your selection of cocktails, but on tap, they have your selection of local favorites as well. And as you see on the screen, Winnipeg Jets and Blue Bombers game day specials, home games and away games, and they're going to have the game up on the screen. Food specials, drink specials, and Chris, I say it every time, their wings are off the charts, but their culinary choices go beyond the pub classics. They do those really well, but they've also got some adventurous stuff on there. They love telling me to tell people to have the wild boar and venison burger with smoked cheddar and blueberry compote. Believe me, it works. So tasty. Yeah. Go check them out, shannonsirishpub.ca.
Yeah, great for them. I really appreciate that. But I want to go back and hit one more thing. You talked about Brian Cole.
Yep.
I watched Brian Cole, and that man he's just a terminator on special teams. he's down there. He's one of the first guys, and he's throwing his body at these
He's a
guys. I mean,
missile, right? Just
I like the way the guy plays,
yeah.
and I know he's a DA. He's a designated American, so he can't start the game, but he can come in for I think 25 or 30 reps. So I'm this is my personal opinion what's going to happen. I think Les Morrow's going to start. You're going to go with him a little bit, but I got a feeling you're going to see Brian Cole at that linebacker spot. He's smart. He's tenacious. So I think they have a good opportunity to get both those guys in the game or playing reps with both of them, and that's going to help because they're going to have to make some good tackles. I mean, Brown, like I said before, Kevin Brown, the running back for Edmonton, he's a horse, man. He's averaging 5 yards a carry. He's only got carried about 57 times, so he's still pretty fresh. The problem is this offense hasn't been on the field very much. I mean, they're number 8 in rushing, they're number 8 in passing, they're number 9 in in offensive plays. They've only run 51 plays. It's just not good. And the other thing that hurts Edmonton, penalties, stupid penalties. They're number 1 for taking the most defensive penalties. They just kill themselves. They shoot themselves in the foot. Not only is the offense giving the ball away, but the defense is letting people on offense continue drives. And you can't do that.
It's incredibly confusing, too, because this was the most penalized team in the CFL when Jason Moss was the head coach. How long ago was that? And there's still new head coach, new GM, new everything, and they're still penalized so terribly. I don't know if that is a cause and effect of just not being a good football team. So the players maybe stretch a little bit, reach a little bit, take liberties where they shouldn't because they're trying to, stay competitive and get an advantage back on the opponent. You know it better than anybody, Chris. There's holding on every play in football. It's just the egregious ones that get called by the officials. But strange to see Edmonton so penalized when they are so bad. And that leads to another thing I wanted to bounce off of you. The line for betting, and if you want to throw a little sprinkle on it, sia.com/bonfire. Sign up there, and you get a nice tidy bonus as well once your initial deposit clears. 15.5 points. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers opened as favorites, and people are like, "That's a huge number," And I get it. The Bombers are a good team, but coming off a tough loss, they're only 4-2. It's not like they're kicking everyone's butt, but they are a very, very good team, and everyone knows that. Edmonton, winless, hapless, bottom of the league in all statistical categories, pretty much. I think this betting line is genius by the odds makers because it is such a big number. You can't just say, oh yeah, Winnipeg's going to win at home, because 15.5, that's 2 scores plus. Yeah. So it's tough to do that. And a money line bet doesn't net you much either.
Yeah, that's the thing. I looked at that too. And the funny thing is, and it's not really funny, I guess, but Edmonton's eventually going to beat somebody. We just hope it's not the Bombers. But eventually they're going to turn this around. I can't see them going winless for the year. I think they're going to win a football game. Listen, they played an exhibition season this year, and it was a tight game. And I understand exhibition is you're playing all new guys. Half the guys aren't even here anymore because you're playing different people. But it was a tight-fought game. There's just certain things I look at, and I jump out of me. Like if you look at the Edmonton Eskimos secondary, 4 of the 5 guys starting are first-year players. I mean, you look from you got Dwayne Thompson, first year out of Valdosta, Marlo Shaw and Franklin Jr., first year out of California, Berkeley, Darius Bratton, first year out of Virginia, Kai Gray, first year out of Lincoln UMV. The only guy that's got experience, and he's only got 2 years, is the field side corner. Marcus Lewis is in his second year. Lots of inexperience there. And I know that Chris Jones is a smart cat. He's trying to put things together. He's trying to find that mesh where guys can play. So he's got a bunch of young guys, and he's hoping they can gel. Now, obviously, when you have a rookie, what somebody said that for every rookie you start, you lose a football game? That's a true line.
That was you who said
that. Somebody way smarter than me said that. But it's the truth. When you look at this, I was blown away. I mean, like, seriously, the starting middle linebacker, Tony Jones, first year out of Montreal. They just got so many new guys.
But Elliott Brown. But they're 0-6, so it's only one way to go, and that's up.
That's what I'm saying. you have to start. They're not winning with the people they had, so they're looking for somebody who can do the job, right? And when you're not winning, it is very nervous to be in that locker room. Do you know that? It's very nervous because you're thinking, if I screw up, you're not playing comfortable. You're playing with fear that you make a mistake. And you're starting to overthink things instead of react to things. And as a result, you're worried about making a mistake to get you cut. And you have to eliminate that and play with confidence. Just take care of your own job. You always said, hey, you have one job, take care of it, and everybody else take care of their job. If you overcompensate for somebody else or try and cheat, that's when breakdowns happen. So, yeah, I just think that I know what Chris Jones is trying to do here. I know what he's trying to build here. But, boy, I tell you, when you got a lot of rookies there, you better make sure you got great communication back there, especially with your boy, Kevin and Kenny. Don't call me Kenny. Call me Kenny Lawler. I mean, even last year, the shortened season, 12 games, he had 5 touchdowns. So, I mean, this guy, he's a deep threat, And I saw that sort of wax poetic here, but I saw the interview with whatchamacallit, Zach today, Zach Collaros, and he was saying that this is the best receiving crew he's ever had. You know what I mean? It's just unbelievable when you look at the talent they got here from Drew Walterski, who leads the team with 4 touchdowns. I really like the guitar man, being a big fan of him. I talk about him every week. And then you got Dalton Schoen, and I was listening to some broadcast. They were dumping on Schoen, and it was stupidity. They were going, big deal. Who doesn't?
Yep.
Oh my God! Do you think I ever missed a block? I missed a ton of blocks. Listen, it happens, man. Get off that. I know you're trying to create drama, but the guy went from the penthouse. Now there's talking like he's washed up, which is just stupidity. And then you got, so you got those guys. You got Nick Dembski, who's a big, The thing is, we haven't talked about, and I know you're going to talk about.
Well, if you let me talk about something.
Oh, sorry. Hey, Walby, shut up. Okay. All right, sorry, DB. I'm putting it back in. Ooh.
No, go ahead. What is it?
I want to talk about one thing that really stuck out to me, and I know you're going to talk about it, and I will let you run with it. Where was the run game last week? I mean, did you watch it? They played fantastic against the run.
The play calling, a lot of people have those questions, right? Like, Collaros' interception, the pick 6 to Brandon Dandridge. I'm not hanging that on the quarterback. That was a tipped ball. All 3 of his interceptions this season have been tipped balls. One to Dembski, one to Bailey, I believe, where the receiver got their hands on it. That's not on the quarterback. People are wondering about the play calling, though. If it's 2nd and 7 or 2nd and 5, and the run game got you there, why don't you continue with it? The Blue Bombers play calling, the Blue Bombers offense as a whole, not even so much just the play calling, but the offense as a whole. Chris, I've seen it throughout the season. They have these ebbs and flows where they are so explosive, so dynamic, so dominant. It seems like a 15-play, 10-minute drive, marching the field and killing the game, or these deep shots, run game, setting them up, and then boom, over the top is Dalton Schoen, or is Nick Dembski, or is Greg McCrae, or whatever the flavor du jour is, because the Bombers have so many weapons. Next up, Kenny Lawler. You just wait for it. But then they go these stretches of time where they can't get the chains moving. 2 and out, 3 plays, 4 plays, and having to punt. It's strange to me that whether it's the offensive line, whether it's the play calling, whether it's execution and mistakes, or whether it's all of that mixed together, Winnipeg just has not been the consistent performer on offense like they have under Zach Collaros the last 2+ seasons.
Yeah, and I know that, you mentioned something really important. Against Montreal, they had that 15-play last-minute drive where they just pushed the ball down Montreal's throat, and they couldn't get anything generated to run the ball. I mean, Brady had 9 carries. That's not a lot of carries. For 16 yards, he averaged 1.8 yards a carry. I thought that Baron Miles, the Ottawa defensive coordinator, did a fantastic job of plugging the holes, knowing what our bread and butter is, and they took away everything. I mean, Brady, once he gets through the hole, he's gone.
You know how Ottawa won that game? In the locker room at halftime, because they figured it out. And they also kept coaching those guys to have belief in their young quarterback and in the adjustments they made. It was
Well,
impressive the way they came out in the second half. Offense, defense, special teams, all of it.
I'm looking at the kid that was a big factor for them with Mike Wakefield, who got that sack against Zach in the overtime.
Yep.
Basically forced another great kick by Sergio, who's having a career year. It's just one of those things where, I've saw some people saying, why are you, handing the ball off when you're 2nd and 5? Throw the ball. You got these great receivers. They're moving the ball down. You hit Schoen for a couple big plays. So, but there's always question marks. When things don't go well, you're always going to put question marks on it. When things go well, you're always wondering. But I think it's better, and I've said this 100 times before, you learn more from a loss than you do from a win.
Yep.
You look at your mistakes and say, okay, this is so interesting. Okay, what did we do wrong here? What block did we miss? Was it, should we have done something different? And how many plays do you leave on the field? That's what you'll look at, right? I mean, that's what your coaches do. They break it out every time, player by player and play by play. So I think that, the Bombers are going to come out dominant. I think they're going to really try and establish that run game right off the bat against Edmonton. And it'll be up to see what the Edmonton guys can do in front there. I mean, AC Leonard's playing well. This Elliott Brown, they got Cody Ely in the middle. They've got some good defensive linemen. They're not a bad team. They just have so much inexperience in the back end. That's the only thing that scares me. When you got guys like I said, we talked about Kenny coming back, Rasheed Bailey, who I'm waiting, he's going to have a breakout game. You know that, eh? He's going to get in there.
Yep.
Peter D. There's a good question.
Yeah. I want to get to that, but first things first. Rob Mahoney says, Bluto can talk. He's an even better commentator than he was a player, in my opinion. #legend. I'm with you, Rob. I've learned more about broadcasting from you, Chris Walby, than I have about football, and you've taught me a heck of a lot of football. Peter D., who's chiming in, watching live on Facebook, says, hey, Walby, what do you think of Jeff Gray's play this year? That is a good question. Chris, when it came to Pro Football Focus and grading out all of the different position groups through 5 weeks of the season, Pro Football Focus had a Blue Bombers offensive lineman at every single spot in their top 5, except for left guard. Chris Kolinkowski was the top-ranked center in the CFL. Bryant and Hardrick and Neufeld, kind of in the middle to the bottom of the top 5. Jeff Gray, not in the top 5. What do you see from the young Winnipegger at left guard?
I think that he's getting better. I think he's not playing bad. I think he's one of these guys that's very intelligent, knows his offense, knows it in and out. Is he having some issues sometimes? Yeah, the guys are starting to figure him out a little bit. They're picking a shoulder on him when they're rushing. But he's physically an athlete. So I think he's going to, it's one of those things he's going to get better as a keeper. He's got a great offensive line coach. They're going to work with him. When you're in this group, I think is probably one of the top lines still in the CFL. It's interesting that you mentioned Chris Kolinkowski, because I've really been impressed with him. But, even him, he's had a couple of rough series against Ottawa last week too. And then you got Hardrick, who I think has been pretty good. You don't hear much about Stanley right now. I don't think Stanley's having a Stanley Bryant type year right now, but I still think they're doing an excellent job. But the question about Gray, I think Gray is a good football player who's only going to get better. And they know that. They know it. He's a tough guy. He's a big guy. Would he be happy with his play? I think he'd be happy, but if you asked him, could he play better? It's like anybody else. They're going to say, yeah, of course he can play better.
A lot of people in the live chat asking about Bonfire midweek. Zach and I were not able to we weren't able to get our things to align. So there was no show yesterday, bye week this coming week. So unclear.
Oh, that's right. Woohoo! Get out of here,
we're going to do for the following week, but pregame and postgame every single game, no matter what, because I couldn't tear Chris Walby away from his camera and microphone and his need to be on YouTube on a weekly basis throughout the CFL season. Chris, do you want to get your keys to the game?
Yeah, I basically talked about them all already. I mean, basically, for offense, I think that you can't win any football game one-dimensionally. We always said that running game is always important. You can't just run the ball 9 times or 10 times as they did. They've got to get a 50-50 or a 60-40 match of run pass. I want to see Brady have a better game. I want to see him get the ball. I want to see better blocking from that O-line. And on defense, I think you got to keep Cornelius caged up. I think that he's going to watch that film and saw what Crum did from Ottawa, and I guarantee it. I'm a betting man that he's going to start taking off with that football. He's going to try and stretch that line. So I think if you keep him in your hands, keep him in, and allow your tackles to get some penetration, I think you'll have great success. And you force him to make some mistakes. And again, another thing with this guy, don't give him a pre-snap read. Move up slowly just before the ball is snapped. That causes all kind of havoc for the offense. And the special teams, hey, listen, anybody that thinks we don't miss Janarian Grant's crazy. I mean, if you look at, I really listen. I'm not a bad fan of my friend Greg McCrae. He's got great speed, but he doesn't have the knack. I watched him last week. He averaged 4.5 on punt returns and 15 yards on on kickoffs. He doesn't have that elusiveness. I think maybe he's looking downfield as he's catching the ball, watching who's going to hit him. Where Janarian Grant is my definition of an old Walby warrior. That son of a butt gun just hits that hole, and boy, if you miss one play, he's gone. You watched Mario Alford from Saskatchewan?
Oof.
2 return touchdowns. Now I want to ask you a question. Was that $1 million?
I don't know.
Because I know that Save on Food says you get 2 in one game. You get I never heard anything.
I never heard anything either.
Yeah, it's weird, eh?
Good question.
Oh,
well, you know where to shop.
I want the $1 million.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, and the Blue Bombers would pay $1 million to have Janarian Grant and a lot of the other injured players they have right now back in the lineup. Craig Smith, what's going on, Craig? Great to see you as always, our good friend. Walby's analysis is so good, says Craig. Used to see him at the Norwood Legion where I met my wife. Thursday nights were good there. MTS girls and a smiley face. What's going on with that? Where's the story, Chris?
I can't talk about that, man. Listen, I'm happy. He's a great guy. And I want to say this. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone. Oh. I just want to give that because, and she's always gone too long. See, somebody asked me, can I sing a song? Well, yeah, I can, brother. There you go.
See, you know where you can sing, Chris? At Shannon's Irish Pub. They got like...
Hey, let's do it, Irish.
Like 3 nights a week, they got karaoke. So head over there. We'll have a couple coldies and, take in some of the games. I think that would be just an outstanding idea. Don't you agree?
You know what? It's interesting. Maybe next week, because we have the bye, maybe we go down there and watch a game. You know what I mean? Maybe Thursday night if they have a Thursday night game or something. Because next week on Friday, I got to go to the lake. I haven't been there. I got to cut the grass, but.
So this is what I'm thinking. Wednesday night is Winnipeg Sports Talk night at the Gold Eyes game. You can get tickets through Winnipeg Sports Talk's website for like $15, that sort of thing. They're way down the third base line near Craft Beer Corner. That is going to be
beautiful place to watch.
Destination on Wednesday at the Gold Eyes game at home. Maybe Shannon's after. We'll see. Could turn into an event.
Nicest seats in the game. Nicest seats. You know what? When I can sit there, I used to go to the arena and I sit in those seats and my knees are basically hovering around the guy in front of me by his ears. Mm-hmm. It just looks terrible. And, and I have to stand up because I just can't fit in these seats. They're not made for big guys, but I'll tell you this, the goal lines. Oh, baby. Those seats, unbelievable. I could crash there, brother.
Yeah. You better not, though.
No, I better not.
Just before we let you go, Chris, and to everybody out there, really appreciate you tuning in live here on Game Day Winnipeg. We're going to get the post-game show fired up following Thursday night's game between the Bombers and the Elks. So if you're at the Madhouse on Matheson or watching on TV, we will get it going live just a few minutes after the game. Chris, how do you see this game playing out? Give us a bit of a prediction of what you expect, where the Vegas odds makers feel it is a 15.5-point spread. The Elks winless this season, 7th game on tap. Winnipeg coming off a really, really tough late game collapse and a loss to sit at 4-2. Good news overall that they're back home for this game.
Yeah, I think so. I think my big interest is going to be how long before Zach hits Lawler. I think that's going to be one of the biggest things. The crowd's going to go crazy. If you watch Kenny, and Kenny said it's such an honor and a privilege to come out of that end zone, out of the locker. This is a man that's biting at the bit to get on that football field and prove that, it was worth the wait. I'm excited for him. I know Zach, and I know Zach's probably – I bet you within the first couple of series they go deep to him. I'm just telling you, that's how I feel.
Yeah.
I also want to say something else to you, buddy, while you're on here. Happy birthday to your buddy Zach. I know it was his birthday. God bless you, brother. You know what? If I was around, I'd buy you a beer, but I'm never around you. But happy birthday. It was really nice to see you, that you had a day. I wished him happy birthday online, so that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. No, Zach Schnitzer, the fan fuel of Bonfire Sports. No question about that. Happy birthday and belated as always. But Chris, just as we wrap things up here, do you remember a time in your career where the team you played on, there was belief in the room, there was expectations outside of the room for your team to perform, for your team to vie for a Grey Cup championship, and you hit that point in the season where there's a little bit of doubt creeping in because losses are harder to forget than wins are to remember?
I think '88 when we won the Grey Cup, we went into the playoffs on a bit of a losing streak. Then we played at Hamilton in '88 and beat them up pretty good at home. But yeah, we lost a couple of games near the end of the season. I think about '87 when we thought we were going to win. We set a kind of all kind of offensive records with Tommy Clements, and we had such a great team with Willard Reeves and all these guys. By the way, I should say this. Tomorrow I'll be at the game. Me, Stan Mikawas, Willard Reeves, and John Osterhaus in the Alumni Alley. So come down and say hi.
All right. So 84, you win the Grey Cup. 85, 86, and then 87, you guys were riding pretty high. What got in the way that season?
Oh, you know what? It's peaking. It's one of the things we should have won that '87. I think we lost in the final at home to Toronto, if I'm not mistaken. Can't remember who we lost to, but it was just a horrible loss. I remember we lost in another game another year we lost to Baltimore, and we should have won. We fumbled the ball, but we didn't fumble. The ball was dead on the ground, but back then he didn't have replays or challenges, and we lost the game to Baltimore 13-12. That's another game that bothers me. I remember the losing games more than I remember the winning games sometimes.
Like I said, yeah.
That's crazy, man. But yeah, you know what? 16 years, there's a lot of good football, a lot of great friends, and a lot of tears, a lot of laughs. I wouldn't trade it for the world. My fingers like to go back because I could probably get some straight fingers. Maybe play, piano again. Right now, I can't play guitar.
Maybe you'd be a guitar player like your sons.
Like your sons can play. If I could play half like the guitar man, Drew Wolotarski, I'd be happy. I just want one Western song just so I can, go by the campfire and bullshit people and go, hey, look at me, and I could get a twang on like Dunnigan. I told you about Dunnigan. I knew we were going to win any football game that Matt Dunnigan was in if he came in and he had a draw. Because he always walks. If you ever know Matt, he's bow-legged like a mother. Look, he was born on an ostrich, right? His legs are all bent and shit. And he come in and he'll go, hey, real boy. He got the accent. I said, we're going to win. If he comes in, he doesn't say nothing, and he doesn't have an accent, oh, shit, we're in for a rough one, this one. That's the truth. Matt Dunnigan, God bless you, brother.
Do you think? Yeah, you gotta love Matty. He's one of my favorite people.
He's great on the air too.
And just in person as well. Huge personality in him, and unique one too. But if you think back to those years, Chris, where you were on a very, very good Winnipeg Blue Bombers team, and the years you won and the years that something got in the way and you went home early, what is like the advice or the perspective you would share with the fans out there that are wondering if this Blue Bombers team, with the way the roster is constructed, the age of certain position groups and individuals, and the window that is open right now, but is not going to be open forever, what do you share with them about your experience on those teams winning and not winning Grey Cups?
Listen, I've played against Mike O'Shea many years. He's smart. I think he's second leading tackler in the history of CFL. He coaches just like Cal Murphy coached. And what I mean by that is veterans are key. You must have veteran presence on the locker room, not only for leadership, but for just having experience. And that's what O'Shea's got. I'm not into this about long in a tooth crap. I think, you know what? Yeah, you can only ride that gravy train so long, but I still think this year, maybe next, but every year it changes, right? Injuries happen, guys retire, maybe you get a new career. But I'll say this. I think that the team they got right now, especially with the addition of Lawler and getting these healthy guys back like Kyrie Wilson and, Winston Rose and these, this is a team to me, if they play smart, disciplined football, they're still a team to beat. But I'm looking forward to the BC. The next home game is BC. Mm-hmm. That'll be a great game. And then, of course, Toronto. We want to see him play Toronto because this Chad Kelly, he's lighting it up there in the east side. So, Anyway, those are my thoughts, buddy.
I agree with you. I really enjoyed watching Chad Kelly this year. I would look out, if you're a team facing the Toronto Argonauts on any given Thursday or Friday night. But you're right, Chris. The Elks and Bombers get it going Thursday night. Post-game show, as we always do here on Bonfire Sports. Then comes the bye week, which we will all drink in and enjoy. The BC Lions come back to IG Field for a rematch Thursday, August 3rd. You and I will have a pregame show, as we always do, the day before the game, live at 3 o'clock. That is going to be a ton of fun. But hey, let's not look too far ahead. That's how you end up losing games to winless teams, when you look past your opponent.
That's right. And I think it'll be a great game. I think Edmonton, I know a lot of people. I'm really happy the game's on Thursday. I think the fact that Edmonton is an 0-6 team, I think if this game was on a Friday or Saturday, the crowd wouldn't be that good. But the fact it is a Thursday, I think we should have a great crowd. I know they're calling for a whiteout. The Bombers are going to wear their white jerseys, which usually they wear on the road. They're going to wear them at home, so they want to have a whiteout. They're kind of taking a page off the Jets, having a whiteout there. So
hopefully it's the only page they take, though.
Yeah, I know they're good. I mean, I'm okay with that, man. But anyway, I just want to say, God bless you guys. Hey, DB, have a good. I'll see. Are you going to the game?
Oh, I'll be there. Oh, yes.
Okay, I'll see you at the game.
Yeah.
I heard they're going to.
Hey, and everybody else out there, whether you're going to the game or not, however you're taking it in, go hit thumbs up right now on the video. And if you're watching afterwards, hit the comments section below. And if you're listening on the podcast, thanks for subscribing. Go leave a review in your podcast app. We'd appreciate that a lot. But go hit the thumbs up right now, everybody. I can see you there. I see that you haven't yet. Go hit that thumbs up, or else I'll send Chris Walby after. Have a great weekend, Chris. We'll see you at the game.
Hey, listen, you too, buddy. I haven't had a cold one yet, and I wasn't going to have a cold one today. But now, after getting jacked up talking to you, I might have to crack a cold one.
Indulge, my friend.
Thanks,
enjoy.
Steve. Thanks, man. I was trying to make it a couple days, but I can't. So, okay. All right. We'll talk to you later, guys. Go Blue. We'll see you at the game.